if any film will distinctly inform one of the Ballardian nature of the 21st century, even more so than the 20th, we might assume, it is this 2002 feature film documentary of sorts from Chris Petit and Iain Sinclair, London Orbit, based off of, partially so, Iain Sinclair's piece of his prose of the same name. Partly is part journalistic, part fiction, part non-fiction, I suppose you could classify it as. Iain Sinclair's a thoroughly fascinating figure. He's the gentleman who's most popularized the term of psychogeography, wherein it's this quasi-spiritualistic, can be dismissed as new agey, although there is this sincere belief that cities retain echoes of a residue of an older environment, and they constitute the same sort of... There's a certain second sense with which one can traverse cities with. That's putting in ways which I don't think he would prefer, although that's me trying to summarize it off the top of my head to those who I presume may not be familiar with his work. And I think the Ballardian connection to this particular film, firstly, it contains a fascinating interview with the author Ballard, and it offers an articulation of the weirdness described by Ballard, which he prescribes the English post-war lifestyle with, kind of influenced by American market capitalism. It's and then distilled via other figures such as the director Chris Petit and Sinclair and some of his other associates who joined him on the trip. They would make remarks about how the M25, which is primarily this documentary, this feature's subject, contains certain eerie similarities with its current usage is not unlike how the region was manipulated in Bram Stoker's classic iconic novel Dracula. So there is a sense of the residue in the history of a place. I would recommend, perhaps, for more recent, slightly more relevant to the contemporary event 2002, the most recent interview you might be able to find of Alan Moore. You should search Alan Moore into your YouTube. I'll just link it in the description, but he's discussing how significant he feels his hometown of Northampton is, and why he remains a resident of Northampton to this day. It reminds one of the discussions of psychogeography engaged with by Sinclair. But London Orbital, most importantly, the most immediate affect is this immense nostalgia for a certain futurism/modernism of 2002, which, in our quest to... I think the contemporary world is sort of imprisoned by a sense of FOMO. It's almost like the concept of FOMO itself has kind of imprisoned us. It's like we hyperstitionally conjured it into existence in a way. This idea of... it probably describes something that was more eternal and we could find in ruminations of Plato or some such from thousands of years ago. Although what I find interesting about the contemporary, as I perceive it, is a tendency to assume that, oh, well, we could just go ahead and be modern, but hey, each decade we thought it was the great present, and we've got the way to the past almost at all times now with the internet, history. And so the 2000s, they thought they were all modern, up to date, and it was rip roaring, let it run, let it bull by the horns, and then things were still problematic. And so we reached 2023, and we need to make sure things are not, perfect. We need to kind of make the utopia arrive. And we're thinking we can't just rely on our senses anymore, as the modernisms of previous decades have. We need to find something beyond that, something, even though it's considered radically strange and subversive, something rather conservative almost in that old Burkean way. Not really, but I think that's where the more modern, those who want to kind of bring about a new categorical, not necessarily end of history, but like an end to discourse, wherein we sort of find a perfect way forward rather than just embrace as is. It's almost the tension of all discussions today, maybe at any point in history, in the modern world at least, post-World War II, in the respect. Post-Cold War certainly stem from that. And so a piece of nostalgia of the long past 2002, or for a distillation of where we can take a certain modernism today. There is that Ballardian want to perceive the world as mysterious and almost embrace the strangeness of it as something that elicits fun and novelty and excitement, the way John Fox perceived the onset of the kind of Thatcherist aesthetic, just you could argue, or the beginning of kind of concrete housing estate Britain as it was distilled on the album Automatic. And what we have with the contemporary perhaps is, yeah, like I said, there's that tension between, we could instead embrace something of a higher logic, but then in 10 years from now we'll realise we were simply embracing a modernism of the 2010/20s. It's a tension which may never resolve itself in our species, but let's keep trying anyway. If you have a chance to view London Orbital, you're very lucky, fortunate, as I was, to have viewed the film. What an absolute blessing this has been. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it very immensely.